responsibility that is. You ready, Captain?
Am I supposed to take calls?
No. I mean, I just meant that I hadn't hit the button yet. I was doing that thing where I mentioned a thing that I...
This is your failure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's mine. You're good.
I can't even look at you.
And with that, Jimmy from Texas, you wanted to talk about mystical experiences?
Well, the research article that was published this last Tuesday, it was a survey with so-called God encounters, or that they equate to the research that's going on at Johns Hopkins relative to so-called complete mystical experience and mystical type experience. And they showed that they had some atheists that also participated in the study. And after this event, they no longer identified, or majority of atheists no longer identified with atheism. I don't know if you heard about it. It was...
I can sort of identify because after this experience, I'm thinking about no longer identifying as that either.
I have ruined all atheism for Kyle Curtis. I didn't know whether you wanted to jump in on...
What exactly was the experience? Do you know?
Well, they're like I said, they're relating it to the studies done at Johns Hopkins with psilocybin, where they're giving volunteers a high dose, and they can induce what they're calling the complete mystical experience, which is defined by 6 characteristics that a volunteer has to meet, like criteria on all 6. So if you hit all 6 of the criteria, you've had a so-called complete mystical experience. But of course, it occurs on a spectrum. So if you don't hit all 6, then incomplete or partial mystical experiences also happen as well.
Let me quickly make a side point, which is if you know off the top of your head the name of the study or a good place to find it, that would be good. And then also, in terms of continuing this conversation, which is about to be as spectacular as this bow in my hair, but if you want to continue this conversation afterwards, when everyone has the citations, r/talk heathen, but I think we're probably happy to talk to you about, at very least, the concept of there was a mystical experience with psilocybin, and then people said they weren't atheists anymore.
Well,
they're essentially...
Yeah, the survey study that I'm referring to... Oh, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to
say... They're inducing this experience, is what you're saying. This was not, sort of organically experienced by them individually, right?
Oh, well... In their research, they related to what they're doing in the laboratory studies, which, yes, they're inducing people with this experience with psilocybin.
Okay.
But the survey study that was published less than a week ago in the Public Library of Science, that involved 2 groups. One, a non-group, people who had this experience naturally, whether it's through meditation or asceticism, and then a drug group, people who had this experience, whether through psilocybin, DMT, ayahuasca, peyote, and so forth.
Okay.
So they're getting
all the
high,
practical.
and
then they're experiencing a full mystical experience. So it sounds like a great weekend.
A moderate to moderate to high dose.
Is what you're saying? What you're trying to say is that this is causing them to no longer be atheists, right?
Yes, that's what they're showing in the studies. That
do you think that's genuine?
Well, I've had this experience myself, and I was an atheist prior to the experience. So,
okay, but what I'm saying is, if they're inducing this, right? This is not something that is brought on organically or something that they experience that's personal to them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is it genuine? Well, they compare the induced experience. They see them virtually identical to the naturally occurring. They can make no distinction. So, they are identical.
Sorry. I think that's the point that Kyle is making is if you can induce it with a natural cause, why would you suggest that when it's not induced, it's not a natural cause? So no, not a shortcut. I think the question is, how do you know there's a long cut?
Well, they do, and the Johns Hopkins say that they found these experiences to be biologically normal, because of the fact that they can induce them in such a way that they see them. They see no distinction between those experiences and the ones naturally reported in religion.
Let me ask you this then. Why wasn't God himself powerful enough to induce this event? Why did it take a study to do so?
Well, they have been studying mystical experience for a long time, ever since the work of William James in the early 1900s, and it was very difficult to study people.
Sorry, Jimmy, I'm only jumping in this much because I want to make sure Kyle's questions get answers, because his question was like, why didn't God do it instead of waiting for other humans to do that?
Well, I'm not too sure. Maybe you can elaborate, because I think maybe there.
I don't think it needs to be elaborated. It's very simple. Either the doctors caused the event or God did, and you're saying that this was done by the doctors. So essentially, the doctors at Johns Hopkins are God.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the bow worked after all.
Oh, if you want to put it that way, all they say is they can induce these experiences. They look identical to what's been reported.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I understand completely what you're saying. What I'm trying to get at is, what is your point? Are you if you're trying to say that by inducing this proves God's existence, you are a long way away from that. In fact, I think it works to the opposite detriment. You're able to induce, mankind is able to do essentially what God can do.
Well, I suppose it depends on how you're thinking about God. After this experience,
that's the golden question, which is we don't, because atheist, but it says here that you're a theist and that you do believe. So what is it that you think about a God? Because we should discuss that.
They in these studies they define these experiences, mystical experiences. According to perennial philosophy.
So I feel like the bow balances out my being slightly more aggressive in my cross-examination. Hopefully, still friendly, but. When you're saying this, you're talking about what the results of the study were and the subject matter there. And you said that you were an atheist, you had this mystical experience, and now you believe. Does that mean that, do you believe in a personal God? Does God answer prayer? What qualities does God have?
I started leaning towards what they call, even in the research, what they refer to as the perennial philosophy.
Research. We're asking about you, he's asking about you personally, not the research.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I identify as perennialist.
Sorry, can you say the word again? Because I'm not sure I've heard it. Perennialist?
Perennialist.
What does that describe in terms of belief?
Well, in the perennialist view, they see these mystical experiences, these visions from the mystics of all the major religions.
Okay. So it's a
hodgepodge.
I was gonna say, depending on how they combine it, it's a salad bowl or a smoothie.
Just throw them all in.
Yeah. Hey, depending on the combination, it tastes sweet. But so you're saying of all of the mystics, right? So, I don't mean to jump on your spot here, but
by all means.
Awesome. I get to be on Talk Heathen. No. I'm being too goofy here.
Too far. Too much.
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Run it back a little bit.
Yeah. I should just wear a rainbow hat. No. So in terms of this experience, and in terms of you've had this mystical experience, and now you believe in a God, right? So do you believe that is a reliable path to truth, right? Like I felt this way, and therefore, there's a God or some supernatural cause to the universe or any of these things. Is that what you believe, or is it just there is some God thing? Like, what does God do now?
I think he might be, I don't know. Sometimes I think the word God itself is an issue.
I agree with that, because so again, sorry to be. Did you want to jump in?
Well, I just have a very simple question. If you came to this experience by something that was caused by man, what is God doing for you now? Like, now that you're not, that's not going on with you now, what is God doing for you in your life outside of that? Have you experienced anything that wasn't brought on by some chemical means or something that was introduced by a team of doctors?
Yeah, definitely.
What is that?
all sorts of things, man. Like you develop more patience, you're more open-minded. I mean, you can even use.
So I mean, as far as the results of the study, I would understand that an experience that was transformative and these kinds of things, an emotionally significant experience in a person's life, whether it was deliberately or deliberately and not clinically induced by drugs, or clinically induced by drugs, might change the way a person views the world. But basically, we haven't heard anything about a supernatural actor or a being that acts on the world. So why do you use the word God?
Well, that's what I meant. Like, I think that word can be confusing because I don't mean anything like a supernatural being or anything like that.
So what do you mean? Like, do you believe that there is something supernatural about your experience?
Not necessarily in the sense that, like,
even more
it's something that defies physics or it's something that's magical. I guess the most profound.
So let me ask this. So you said you used to be an atheist, and then you had a mystical experience. I'll refrain from asking you on camera whether that was induced or natural or a dream, because it's Texas, and for all I know, you might be in Williamson County and in danger for your life just for calling in. But what did you mean before this when you said atheist? Like, because
I think I was kind of like Matt. I didn't know what I meant, and Matt says when he's asked, what would
Matt knows what he means by the word atheist.
It sounds like he's
sure, but when he's asked if what would convince him, what would he consider as evidence, he says he ultimately doesn't know.
I think he just got high, had a really good trip, and now he's. I think that's what it boils down to. It feels like out of body, and it feels supernatural, but it's really not. See, the thing is, if it was a God like I think you're trying to say, this would be something that you would experience on a personal level. It would be something that is close to you because God's speaking to you, speaking to your heart. And this would be something that a large group, it could not happen to. What you're saying is this study says that a group went in as atheists, came out believing because of a chemical that they were put in. And so to me, that is as far away from proof for God as you can get. I mean, the chemical would be...
It's sort of like people believed that lightning was caused by God, and then showing them that, no, it's atmospheric conditions shouldn't persuade people that a God exists. If you can demonstrate the mechanism by which an unknown phenomenon occurs, and that mechanism is natural, presumably it would persuade people that there isn't a supernatural cause and that it's not divine or a divine actor. And so I'm curious why the opposite happened.
I've been high to the point where I thought...
Do you mind if I add something real quick? One thing that happens that's probably the most profound in these studies is in the complete mystical experience, they talk about everyone has this, feeling in their experience, in their everyday consciousness of subject-object duality, that you're the organism separate from its environment. And at the height of a complete mystical experience, that duality no longer exists.
Yeah, so...
There is no...
sorry to jump in here, Jimmy, because I've run a little bit longer, and I can see Eric out of the corner of my eye.
I just wanted to mention the study, man. If you want to end the call now, that's fine.
Oh, yeah, cool. No. Just if you know the name of the study, say it real quick. But what I was going to say is it sounds like you're describing an ego death, which is a positive thing, even though it includes the word death. But
it's something that you need, actually. Ego death.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they equated to. Definitely.
Yeah. I feel like inducing that with chemicals doesn't really have anything to do with the God. So I would encourage you to call back next week because I think this conversation can be very productive. But I don't know why you would describe yourself as a theist or a person that believes in God. But in any case, I hope to talk to you again.